Did you manipulate Jerry Cassidy into killing your husband?
No, I did not.
1999. Her husband, Bruce Miller, is shot while talking on the phone in his office. Police were stumped until a suicide occurred 600 miles away. Former homicide detective Jerry Cassidy had shot himself in the head. At his house, police discovered a videotape. The woman on it, Sherry Miller.
Did you ever send naked pictures of yourself to Jerry?
No.
Did you ever send Jerry films of you naked?
Films of me naked? No, I didn't.
The two had struck up an online relationship.
It showed her saying things to this guy to really kind of bring his blood to both a sexual and emotional boil.
She told Jerry her husband was abusive and finally convinced him to kill her husband.
He couldn't see what the truth was anymore and what was a lie. He was going to be the white knight for Sheree Miller. He was going to kill the dragon and claim his property.
But perhaps the most damning evidence, a suicide note left by Jerry.
I was so blind and so stupid and so much in love. Little did I know she never meant any of it. She just wanted all her money and no more husband. Sheree was involved and helped set it up. I have all the proof.
Sheree Miller's got a lot to say. You will hear from her directly, and a great deal has happened to her since that forensic file aired. In 2001, sentenced to life in prison. 2009, the judge grants her a new trial. Sheree is eventually released for 3 years. In 2012, the judge reverses that decision. Sheree's back to prison. Joining us, Sarah Azari, criminal defense attorney, Vanessa Barnett, journalist, Troy Slayton, former prosecutor, and Kevin Shanlon, lead detective in the Sheree Miller case. Now, Kevin, they exchanged over 1,400 emails, but as you found in your detective work, she was into more stuff than just emails with this one guy.
She was. She was had very numerous lives that she was living with females and males, and manipulated many people.
How did you figure this out? Was this all just secondhand reporting, or did you actually talk to the people that were the objects of her manipulation?
As soon as the homicide occurred, it appeared to be a robbery, but we still did the basic police work, and we checked on her whereabouts, and we checked on her story, and that's where, within days, we had information that she was at a local bar in a town of about 300 people committing a sex act on the dance floor before her husband was even put into the ground. So we followed up and kept a loose tail on her, even though she had a rock-solid alibi for the night of the homicide.
Now, she explained those emails between she and Jerry in an interview with NBC. I want you all to watch this. Take a look.
Did you love Jerry Cassidy?
No, I wasn't in love with Jerry Cassidy. No.
Do you think Jerry Cassidy was in love with you?
Did he love me or the fantasy?
Some people might, just by looking at the emails, think those are two people in love.
Yeah, and if you read a Daniel Steele book, you'll believe that too, you know. I mean, people talk. That's what we were doing.
Sheree told NBC she was shocked when police arrested her for her husband's murder. Take a look at this now.
Did you manipulate Jerry Cassidy into killing your husband?
No, I did not.
When police said to you, you are under arrest for the murder of your husband, Bruce, what flashed through your mind? What did you say?
My kids. I just started yelling, what am I going to do with my kids? Why would you think I would do this? I started crying. I couldn't believe it was like a nightmare.
Okay, that's why I brought two defense attorneys in today, because I can't believe anybody would have something cohesive to say about this case. But Sarah, I'm going to give you a first crack at it.
Well, okay, baloney, all right?
What's baloney?
Everything that she's saying, denying that she was involved in this crime.
Right, she's a liar. We know one thing for sure, she's a liar.
Absolutely,
okay,
and she's a sociopath. And
oh, well, I don't know that yet, but I thought you were a defense attorney.
Well, but no, but here's the thing. There's clear evidence from the instant messages going back and forth.
Although she says those were fabricated.
Right,
somehow.
and that's my point. It's not enough to say that people are fabricating something or pointing the finger at somebody else. You have to show a motive. So what's Jerry's motive in fabricating these instant messages?
Well, maybe Troy, maybe he's angry that she broke up with him and he wants to get back at her like a spurned lover. No?
It's all about money, Drew. Money is the root of all evil. But I think, yes, But I think that the first judge, made a good decision by by admitting the suicide note. That's why her case got overturned on appeal, because the court said, well, maybe that suicide note shouldn't come in. But yeah, it should come in because it totally implicated her.
On what ground would it not be admissible?
Because you can't cross-examine a piece of paper. You can't put the piece of paper on the witness stand and let defense attorneys like us ask the really hard questions.
It's hearsay.
It's hearsay.
In his handwriting,
but there's
his
a lot
words.
He's not there to be cross-examined.
There's a lot of
challenged.
exceptions, though. And this was one of the exceptions.
Vanessa, you think that's weird? I think it's weird.
This is BS.
Yeah.
Beyond weird. I mean, the man is spelling out the whole case for you. You got to let it in. I'm from the common sense court. I don't know what court they work in. It's all common sense here. The man spells it out. He would have never killed her husband had she not put him up to it.
And this business, we just heard in that last piece of paper, hey, people talk. What are you going to do? Just a little chatty. She also lied to this guy, right, about being pregnant. She says it's because he was depressed and then thought that, well, I'll cheer him up by letting him think he's got a child coming. And then she made up the story about her husband making her get an abortion because she knew to explain why she wasn't pregnant when she actually had sex with Jerry next time, pretty much. But this woman sounds, I mean, I hear, this story flipped me out a lot, I got to tell you, because it to me, if 70% of this, if 50% of it's true, it shows how much people can get into behaviors, how untrustworthy somebody can be. And I'm generally a trusting person, and so it rocked me a bit.
And this is a homicide detective. Exactly. This is not an average Joe. This is a guy who can tell when someone's telling the truth versus someone lying to him, and he was duped. So imagine.
Kevin, comment on that, if you would. That is a really important point, isn't it?
Yes, it helped on him delaying what we found and discovered because he left no evidence behind at the scene.
But Kevin, I think you're missing the point. The point is that here's a pretty savvy dude that's used to dealing with untrustworthy people, and even he was duped by this chick.
True. She manipulated. When you read all 1,400 emails, it was a roller coaster ride for him. She was sexually available to him in any way that he'd like, and then she would cut him off and tell him these wild stories that she was her husband was involved with the mafia, that she lost 3 of Jerry's kids to being beat. He just led him down a road that emotionally he couldn't see for what was really going on.
All right, we'll keep this going. We're going to talk to Cherie's former attorney.
Jerry, I am scared. Jerry, if this don't work, he will hurt me bad.
It'll work. What is the fastest way into the yard from 75?
75 to Mount Morris Road exit. Now you need to listen to me for a minute. I will call Bruce at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Is the gun loud?
Somewhat.
Just do it and get the hell out of there.
I want him to know who I am.
Jerry, please.
He will know.
He will know.
But not for long.
Are you going to be able to live with this the rest of your life? Because I can.
I love you. Yes, I can.
That was from NBC. Those are instant messages between Cherie and her online, well, and actually real-life lover that was read aloud in court. They detail how the two of them planned to murder Cherie's husband. We are revisiting the forensic file. We're breaking it down, giving you update on the story, as a lot has happened since that originally was produced. We have some of the principals here, and we've got a lot to say about it. Sarah, Vanessa, Troy, Kevin's still with me, and on the phone, I have David Nicola. He was Cherie's attorney. Now, David, you say the Forensic Files episode was one-sided. Why is that?
Well, in reality, Dr. Drew, the IMs were not considered by the jury because they believe they were fabricated or could have been fabricated. And the AOL security, the head of security who was on the tape a minute ago, he said that they could be edited only after we showed him a live demonstration that they could be. The position was before they could not be edited. So we were able to show that it was something that could have been edited. It was found after the murder. And it's also that in that particular case, the jury called me. Some jurors called me afterwards and said we did not even look at it because it was not good enough.
But
they also didn't.
My understanding is you said, though, that those instant messages were fairly damning and may have lost you the case. How's that?
They could have, because it was the only thing that showed a plot and a plan. But the jury did not consider it because they did not believe it was believable.
Did you have a theory about what had happened to this man?
Yes. What wasn't given to us in the beginning of the case in discovery or at any time, the emails that were suggested that they found on the hard drives by Sergeant Petroska, he said the relevant ones we looked at. There were dozens and dozens and dozens of other people Jerry Cassidy communicated with. Before and after this homicide, he had at least a half dozen women he was talking sexual in nature to. There was all sorts of kinky sites that had been looked at that was on his hard drive. I mean, things that were out there, S&M and whatnot.
But
before and after, so he wasn't in such love that he would go commit a murder. He was trying to pick up other women as well.
And yet, I'm going to bring Kevin back into this. Kevin, you say she was up to some of the same stuff, though. Is that correct?
Yeah, she had numerous males and females in her life sexually, and even moved in a local delivery man days after the murder occurred.
Again, everybody.
Anybody can.
Everybody. Keep your life simple. Everybody. I say this every night on this show. Every time we review a Forensic Files, I just think, oh my God, trust your instincts. Keep things simple. There's a reason we commit to one person, and the more violations, the more infidelities, the more crazy feelings develop, the more unpredictable who called it the other day, the X factor can be. Deneen said she's an expert in infidelity, and she sees so many people erupt in ways that you would never predict, that they wouldn't even have predicted.
She sounds like Hot Car Dad. Remember all those like sexual things that he was up to, and then you just end up killing somebody.
Sex addiction, everybody. But back then, they didn't think about it that way. Let's look at the suicide note that Jerry Cassidy left. It said, quote, "Mom and Dad, I'm sorry for all the pain I caused you, but I had to do this. Here is why. After Cherie and I got together, I found out she was married. She lied to me, made promises, as you well know, and I believe them all. Cherie was involved, helped set it up. I have all the proof, and I'm sending it to the police. She will get what's coming." So, David, is that, you think, him just being a jilted lover trying to get her stuck into his web? Is he just psychotic and just making trouble? I mean, this was an upstanding guy other than his online practices, wasn't he?
Well, Drew, you know this, that people who commit suicide try to make the suicide note, make them look like they're a better person and change all the problems they had in their life. This guy was a detective. He got thrown off the force. He was a pit boss. You think detectives and pit bosses are the kind of guys that get duped by somebody over the internet? I'll tell you what, he did not mention one thing about what happened in the murder and how he did it. Not one. Now, this man was killed with a shotgun. Jerry Cassidy, please, in your suicide note, tell us where you put the shotgun so we can verify it was you. He did not put that. There were no gas receipts coming up from Odessa or back. A detective who's going to set somebody up would have set her up completely.
Troy?
So just because he didn't lay out all the grisly details in his suicide note doesn't mean that he didn't do it when he starts off by saying, "Mom and Dad, I'm sorry I did this. This is, why I did it."
Well, to be fair, it was to Mom and Dad, not to the general public, I imagine. But Vanessa?
But, okay, playing devil's advocate here, Cherie is crazy and she orchestrated this thing, but he's a homicide detective. He should know murder equals bad. Why didn't he just rescue this girl and bring her to his town and just save her from her mean old husband?
Yeah, David, I imagine you brought that up during the case, no?
Yeah, well, it was brought up, yes. The jury was hung twice, and it was Friday night, 3 days before Christmas. The jury was hopelessly hung. They were crying and screaming at each other during deliberations, came out crying. So this jury had a hard time. And I'll tell you what, think about this, lawyers. The federal judge, let her go for 3 years on a bond. When can you name another case where a woman who was convicted of murder was released for 3 years? The federal judge knew the facts.
Kevin, go ahead, hang on a second. Kevin, you knew the facts too. How do you respond to that?
Well, the facts are Jerry did leave us a lot of evidence. He left us the instant message. He left us his hard drive where we recovered a majority of the emails that led to it. But you remember, he was in love with her. He was a homicide detective. Shortly after the murder, he thinks he's going to marry her and life's going to go on. He got rid of key evidence then. There was no other person. The instant message was the script. We proved it with the phone records. We proved it with the vernacular that was used in there that was only familiar to people in a 25 square mile area of different reference points. There's no question Jerry did this, and there's no question that Cherie was involved.
And I'm reminded as I see. Hang on a second, David. As I see the Flint, Michigan sign above your head there, Kevin, I'm reminded that Vanessa's from Flint, Michigan. So
don't link me to her. I don't want nothing.
I'm going to look at you differently from now on, Vanessa. That's all I'm saying. Audience question.
I have a question. If he was so great at being able to figure out, getting rid of evidence, why didn't they just pick up a phone? Why didn't they call and talk about all this? Why do they have to do it through instant messaging? That would leave a paper trail.
And I think, I have a feeling, let me give an answer to this, and David will have you answer it. I think back then, people did not think about instant messaging and emails as being something anybody would be able to track down.
Yeah.
They think more in terms of, oh my God, if I'm on the phone, they'll know I made a phone call to this guy. As the other stuff seemed far more clandestine. David, am I right on that?
Well, you're right to a point, but the emails, we gotta remember what happened in these emails. These emails were so nasty, so naughty, they'd make a pimp blush. I'm telling you. What was really in there, I mean, they had two deputies get up there, one a pretty boy who's Jerry, and one that was an older kind of beaten down deputy that was Cherie, and they read these very, very vile emails. Cherie accepted the responsibility for those emails. She didn't accept responsibility for the IM, and that's key. The jury didn't look at it. They said they didn't believe it.
I think they didn't think in terms of the emails being something somebody could have access to. I mean, that's a relatively new kind of awareness we have. All right, we got a little more to say on this. I've got my principal players here. We got the audience questions. And later, I have Jared Fogle beat up by a fellow inmate. A prison insider is here to tell us what happened. Back of this.
I will fight this for the rest of my life if I have to. I can't see myself spending the rest of my life in prison for something I didn't do.
She's a two-bit whore as far as I'm concerned. That's what she is.
You know, and she says she's changed and she wants to help people she's hurt. Well, she hasn't reached out to any of us.
Cherie Miller says she had nothing to do with her husband's murder. A jury thought otherwise and sentenced her to life in prison. We are updating a forensic file episode with facts that have come to light since that show aired. I'm back with Sarah, Vanessa, Troy, and Kevin. The lead investigator in the case with us. Also on the phone, I have David Nicola. He was Cherie's attorney. And Sarah, you wanted to ask David a question.
Yeah, David, my question is, I understand there was a handwritten note found on Cherie's computer desk with a misspelling of somebody's name, O'Connell, something like that, and a phone number. And it was pretty damning that they were able to match that same name misspelled on one of the instant messages on AOL. Was that, how significant was that in the case?
Well, it was significant because here's Jerry playing detective at one point when it comes to setting her up, but not the other. He contacted her. She testified. He called and said, this person, write this name down. This is the person you need to call if I get in trouble or something comes up down here. He'd been arrested down there. He had troubles with alcohol and drugs. He's living in a family member's basement, and he was getting put out. In the instant message, that was message as well, right? But he put that together after the fact. So that was a nice little setup for him there. Again, setting her up, but he never says, and don't tell me he might have disposed of the shotgun and whatnot. He knows where to dispose of it. He can at least say, I did this. Any detective would say that if they actually did it.
Kevin, what do you say to that?
I say I call BS on that. The number was found to match the instant message. If she would have received it in a phone call, she wouldn't have been able to misspell the name wrong. She wouldn't have been able to write the numbers in the exact format wrong. It was a 1 in 2 quintillion chance that would have occurred. That's 19 zeros behind the number 2.
Now listen, I'm going to show you how Cherie described her marriage to her husband. Now Kevin says this was sort of typical behavior with many folks in the community, but here's what she said about herself and her husband on NBC.
What kind of a relationship did you and Bruce have? What sort of a marriage was it?
Wild.
Was it wild?
Spontaneous. We could do it kind of like naughty at night, good in the daytime. I don't know, like I'm Mary Kay consultant and mom and all that and business owner in the daytime, and we did wild things at night. That was us. It made us happy.
At best, Kevin, you'd say she was compartmentalized because she goes, people just chat and they have sex when they chat. They sext each other. And what's up with that? No big deal. But you say it got a lot worse than just that.
Yeah, she formed relationships with ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, with people that were in her life for periods. She kept relationships going. She formed relationships with the Cassidy family after Jerry committed suicide. She just had to have everyone available to her at her whim to manipulate.
David, I'm going to give you some last words here. Go ahead.
Well, it's easy to say that, but in reality, we're talking 1999. The jury convicted her on her morality, not the facts. And during this current day and age where you have cheating websites that are billion-dollar industries, if she had this trial today, what we know about the psychosis that people have, as you know, Dr. Drew, the problems that people have, she would have been found not guilty.
So it would have been all sex addiction, guys. Was that the defense you would have used, Troy?
You know, maybe, but you know, he's saying, oh, the jury convicted him convicted her on morality. No, jurors really try hard to get it right. You know, they spend a lot of time. He said that they were crying, that they're spending all this time.
I know what
in the
it is.
deliberation room.
It's the lead in the water in Flint. That's what it is. The government's fault. That's what it is. And I'm learning not to trust anybody by watching too many Forensic Files. Thank you for watching.